This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the weekly Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. This is the show for March 26, 2019, and I am your host, Darren McKee. With me, as usual, are Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboids?
Cristina Roach.
Hey everyone.
And producer Pat.
Hi, checkers.
But not as usual, joining us are Mitch Moffit and Greg Brown.
Hello.
Hey.
Wow.
Hello. Many checkers are probably familiar with Mitch and Greg as the hosts of the Sidenote podcast, and the Greg and Mitch YouTube channel, and the hugely popular AsapSCIENCE YouTube channel, which has over 8 million subscribers and over 1 billion views.
Wow.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you
for having us.
As usual, though, we have 3 interesting segments for you. Taking a page from the Sidenote podcast, we're going to ask Greg and Mitch to tell us what they learned this week, a regular segment on their show. Mitch is going to tell us about how trees in urban areas affect temperature, and Greg is going to talk to us about how farming culture has influenced the pronunciation of words. And then Pat is going to give us another game of Name That. But first, Greg and Mitch, you've been doing the Sidenote podcast for around a year. Can you tell us a little bit about the show?
Yeah, I can't believe we've been doing it for almost a year.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It feels like yesterday. We kind of started it because, much of the science stuff we do kind of not strips the personality away, but just focuses strictly on the science. But the podcast space allowed us to sort of open that up, right?
Yeah, so every week we take a controversial subject and then we tell stories about it and then we debate it or go off on it if we're on the same side of history. And then we splice the science in throughout. So it's meant to be entertaining while educational at the same time. And yeah, we honestly, it's crazy that we've been doing it for a year. We thought we were going to do 10 and then just
we'll test it out.
We'll do seasons and then here we are. And
yeah. We literally were like, we'll do seasons of 10 at a time, every 6 months. And then we've just done one
never
every
stopped
week since we started.
Yeah. Well, we love it. It's really fun making a podcast, as you obviously know.
Right. So I have to ask you guys, the number of views for the AsapSCIENCE YouTube channel, over 1 billion. I mean, that's wild. Was it popular right off the bat, or did you have a particular episode that caught fire and went viral?
Definitely not the minute we started. It was sooner than we thought. So we had just started kind of for fun. We both have science backgrounds and then had met some YouTubers. But I think the first video that went viral was the scientific power of naps.
Which was my mom's idea.
Yeah.
So we're always like, thank you, and Medlock.
Yeah, so back in that day, too, it was BuzzFeed posted it, then Gizmodo posted it. All these places just started sharing it. I remember getting, hundreds of emails that people were subscribing, but I thought something broke. I was just like, Greg, what's wrong? Something weird's going on. And then it was just, from there, started to sort of tap into what people actually connect to.
But it's not a usual trajectory for YouTube channels. A lot of people, you have to go at it for years sometimes, and then it takes off later. So, I mean, it really was our 4th video that went #viral. We understood what that word meant. Oh, it's like a virus. It proliferates so quickly. But we really, it happened really fast. We are very lucky. And it was, again, a time when BuzzFeed didn't make their own science videos, so they would share ours. Things have changed.
That's great.
Whose idea was it?
The both of us. So
Yeah.
Greg was a science teacher. At that time, I had started working with some other YouTubers as because I like to make music and edit. So that's what I was doing. And then we were like, we should make something ourselves. We're out of school. How do we keep up with science was kind of what started it all.
That anxiety when you leave university and you realize
what do we do?
No one's forcing you to read anymore. No one's forcing you to learn science. You could have essentially go the rest of your life and never read a science journal again. And it all goes to waste.
I think that's most people.
Yeah.
So it was our little project. Yeah.
But it's brilliant too because it's short enough that people won't overlook it,
right.
And it's really clear and it's not preachy.
Oh, thanks.
You.
Yeah, it was based on we really in university spent a lot of time with a lot of art students. We are interested in musical theater, and I have a degree in visual art as well. So we were always getting drunk with our friends, and then it was based on sort of what those little tidbits that we would tell them from the day.
Right.
And it was interesting. I feel like they knew we were obviously so passionate about our degree, whereas they were sometimes ugh, I have to go to theater class, and I was like, what? I'm you're not excited?
It sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. You're literally just acting out Good Will Hunting. Chill. But
That's one of my favorite movies.
yeah.
Well, all right, guys. We want to know what you learned this week.
I found out this week, based on a study that recently came out, that there's something called the urban island effect. And so this is because pavement actually captures a lot of the heat that the sun brings down. And so they actually got a person on a bike to bike around the city and measure the temperature in different areas of the city to figure out if tree cover had any significant impact on the temperatures of the city. Because in a big city like New York or Toronto, you have like a lot of just trapped air and stuff. And so the result of that study was that when there was more, at least 40% canopy covered by trees, it got rid of that effect entirely of the heat being trapped. And so I thought that was really interesting. The only thing that made me sad about it is I also once read a book about how trees need lots of space, and trees in the city are like kind of sad because their roots can't, they're like compacted in like soil and next to like concrete, and so their roots can't spread and like communicate with other trees as much. So part of me is like, it's sad, but I guess it's good for humans.
When you were reading that book, whenever we'd walked in the street, you're like, that's devastating to see that tree. I'm like, it looks beautiful. You're like, it's suffering.
I'm like, it's so sad. It's a depressed tree.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Were these temperature readings closer to the ground, I assume, where people would be,
I think it's
higher?
mostly related to like the temperatures that people are kind of the consequences we face as people in cities. And so it was based on like a bicycle riding around with a temperature reading.
Cool job. It's like the Uber Eats.
Literally,
So the goal here isn't to curb global warming, but it's really to make the citizens more comfortable in their city.
Exactly. Less. Not really like a global effect so much as just how do we make sure like our cities are bearable in the summer.
Like industrial design, kind of.
And it's something you notice sometimes if you come in from out of town and you're like, oh, I'm in the city, and you can almost feel it oozing off of that pavement, the heat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like I didn't live in the city when I was younger, and I would come visit and just you do actually notice the difference. It's always like at least a few degrees different. But
the big smoke.
Yeah, the big smoke.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And Greg, how did farming culture influence how we pronounce some words?
Yeah, so I think this is something that people have theorized for a while, but then this study is sort of just like hammering home this point. And it's that when humans switched to more soft processed food, when we started to have agriculture, it actually changed our jaws a lot, and it created us to have an overbite because it was less necessary for us to have this like prolific underjaw. And that led to us being able to pronounce F and V noises. So f and v. You can place whatever words you want there that it now meant you could say. I know the F word when they want to.
And the V word.
And the V word. Once I didn't need to say it. But then they actually found that this is when language really started to change. And in ancient India and Rome, being able to make these sounds was equivalent. It was like a status symbol because it meant that you maybe had the money to afford farmed or processed food. So it was almost like, you know, now they think of like a posh accent. Like back then, when we were
F's and V's.
Yeah, when we were leaving hunter-gatherer, getting into this agricultural like time, it was sort of a sign of status to be able to say it. And yeah, again, it's the same reason though that we have these smaller underjaws is also why we have like other issues, like for example, wisdom teeth or needing braces. Like that is all comes from the fact that we started to eat more processed food and we didn't need our teeth to actually meet right on top of each other, and we had this little underbite. But we got to talk more. Fun.
And we look
fun.
cuter.
And we look cuter, I guess. Depends.
From what you said initially about agriculture, which I think began around 10,000 years ago or so, 10 to 15, and that influencing, I guess, the way our jaws formed over time.
Yeah, over
that
time.
makes some sense to me. But then when you said it was a status symbol,
Yeah,
that sounds like it's almost like within a generation.
Yeah, they said it was like that time they're thinking of as 4,000 years ago when it was considered a status symbol. So maybe it just meant that at that time, maybe they noticed within languages throughout historical context that maybe it was like only the affluent people who were speaking like that. Or maybe those were the only people who were documented at the time as recording their language. But it was just them like trying to like give little tidbits throughout the study.
Right. I could just be a general sense of people who tend to have more money are more literate and
Exactly.
probably in general.
Yeah, extraneous variables for sure.
So are we talking about an evolutionary change, like for the species, or a change within a person's lifetime where as they grow up eating a certain kind of food, their jaw develops?
No, it would be within the species. Yeah, it took thousands of years. But it was like just and they actually document like where hunter-gatherer societies lived and then where the like agriculture really took off in places like Europe and in East Asia. And then if you actually look at those languages, you see a proliferation of the use of F and V sounds. So there's actually like a map that kind of shows it, that sort of backs up what they're saying. Because a lot of linguists it's not controversial, but like linguists wanted to hear this type of information because they've heard these theories before, but they want it to be backed by this sort of like sound research.
Of course. So all those thousands of years ago, there were just no favorites.
Yeah, no.
So even with older languages that are still spoken today, do we find less F's and V's in older languages, or have they just adapted to change sounds and words? Is that something they really talked about?
Yeah, I mean, like it was interesting when they were talking. They had some anecdotes about current hunter-gathering societies that are alive right now today who don't use it, but that I don't feel like there's enough of them to really have like a large like basis of that. But so many people now are farming, and I'm sure their jaws have changed based on evolution, that it makes sense that they would have F's and V's. But it was more pronounced where agriculture really started in places like Europe and East Asia.
Interesting. To Adam's point, it could just be the widespread effects of like literacy and nutrition and even just pronunciation in general would swamp out any of those. I'm not sure. Because it used to be,
true.
night and knee used to be knite and knee. They actually used to say the K, and now we don't. Yeah. And that's not because of our jaws. That's just how things develop.
Yeah, that's the evolution of language. That's true. It would be all mixed. Yeah. Oh, knite.
So I wonder if there's a risk, amongst, say, CrossFitters and people who are eating paleo, that their children eventually will start to redevelop that underbite because they're really eating that old school kind of thing.
Yeah, like future historians think a lot of guys were named Bro back then. It must have been everyone's name. Well, thanks, guys. And now we turn to Pat for a game of Name That.
All right, here we go with everyone's favorite, mostly guessing game, Name That. Today, in honor of Mitch and Greg joining us, we play another edition of the pain in the butt to research, but always fun, Spot the Fake.
Ooh, yeah.
Awesome. We have 5 questions, no tiebreaker today. If we're tied after 5 questions, we'll end that way. For each question, I will give you 4 so-called facts. 3 are true, 1 is not, and I'll ask you to spot the fake. I've randomly determined our starting order, and we'll rotate.
Okay. Wait, is this a competition between Greg and I?
Oh, yeah, every man for himself.
Yeah, you're kidding. That's our life, baby.
Question number 1. Darren, you're up first. Spot the fake. Is it A, Acoustic Kitty was a project launched by the Central Intelligence Agency in the 1960s, intended to use cats to spy on the Kremlin and Soviet embassies? B, dueling is legal in Paraguay, but only if both parties are blood donors.
That's just responsible.
C, the first known use of OMG to abbreviate Oh My God appeared in 1917 in a letter from Lord Fisher to Winston Churchill. Or D, umpires at Wimbledon are given a list of swear words in many different languages so that they can call out athletes on code breaches for profanity.
Wow. Once again, you've done a great job, Pat. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Winston Churchill, OMG. OMG on the beaches, OMG in the trenches.
Darren says OMG. Next is Cristina.
Pretty sure I know a couple of these. I don't want to let on which ones. Oh. But I'm going to say that B is the fake.
Cristina says B. Next is Mitch.
I'm leaning towards the blood donor one as well. That seemed absurd.
All right. Mitch says B, dueling is legal in Paraguay. Next is Adam.
I'm going to go with the cat spies one, although I'd love to hear more about it if it's true.
Adam says Acoustic Kitty. And lastly, Greg.
Okay, so I'm like, should I be the odd one out and go with a swear? I mean, it sounds a little bit much, and I mean, it just seems like such a British snobby thing that they'd be like, I'm not going to learn any other languages. So I'm going to go with the tennis.
All right.
I love your logic.
The British, they're snobs.
The snobby British.
Greg says tennis. Umpires are provided a list of swear words in many different languages. Lord Fisher did close a letter to Winston Churchill in 1917 with OMG, abbreviating "Oh my God."
Did he like specify that it was oh my God, or was it like known at the time? Because I didn't know when I was young.
It was known at the time. It's a fairly well known fact.
Obsessed with that.
Veterinary surgeons did implant microphones and radio transmitters in cats for the CIA in the 1960s as part of Project Acoustic Kitty.
I hope the cats were okay.
There is a frequently repeated claim that dueling is legal in Paraguay if both parties are blood donors. No evidence exists that this is true, and the notion has been outright denied by the Paraguayan government.
Yes.
Congrats.
Woohoo! All right.
So which part's not true? You don't have to be a blood donor, or the dueling's
The
not
whole
legal?
the whole thing. Yeah.
The whole thing is
All right. It would be nice if it encouraged people to donate blood, though.
That's true.
Question number 2. Cristina, you're up. Spot the fake. Is it A, the founder of Match.com lost his girlfriend to a guy she met on Match.com?
That's true.
Or B, one of the inventors of machine-spun cotton candy was a dentist? Or C, you were only allowed to buy a car in the Netherlands if you can prove that you own at least one bicycle? Or D, a group of pugs is called a grumble?
Oh my gosh.
I can believe the Netherlands would do something like that. I'm going to say a group of pugs.
Cristina says D, a group of pugs. Next is Mitch.
I believe also they could do that in the Netherlands, but I also feel like it's too on the nose and too
Right.
much of a weird law that I'm going to pick, the Netherlands.
Mitch says C. Next is Adam.
When I hit rock bottom after my divorce, I tried to sign up for Match.com. I took an hour answering questions, and then I was faced with a page that said, actually, because of the first question you answered that said you were recently divorced or separated but not divorced, you're not eligible. You cannot use the same account. You need to fax us a divorce certificate. So I hope that one's true. And I'm going to say the fake is the one about cotton candy and dentists. I think that's hilarious. This guy's like double dipping and creating business for himself in a really good way.
Because that never happens in real life.
So Adam says B, the cotton candy. Next is Greg.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the pugs and the cotton candy. I think I'm going to go with cotton candy. I think it's like candy floss, though. I was thinking about cotton candy.
All right. Greg agrees with Adam about cotton candy. And lastly, Darren.
Yeah, you again pick some good ones. I'll go with cotton candy also.
All right, we've got 3 cotton candies. Machine-spun cotton candy was invented in 1897 by dentist William Morrison and confectioner John Wharton.
Confectioner. Ooh.
A group of pugs is indeed called a grumble.
What?
Match founder Gary Kremen says he really knew his venture was successful when his own girlfriend left him for another man she met on Match.
Amazing.
Proving that you own a bicycle before purchasing a car in the Netherlands comes from a Reddit thread titled, "What is the best false fact you can come up with?"
Oh, that was
Mitch!
right.
Oh my
But you know what I was
goodness.
thinking? You don't really like register bikes or anything. You could just lie, right? Like,
Yeah, it'd be
like,
hard to track. There's just so many bicycles everywhere. How would they
borrow
know?
a bike from my friend and be like, it's mine.
You need to send in a picture
Wow.
of you in a unitard. This is like the regulation.
You were so worried because you were tired that you weren't going to be able to get these trivia questions. Bam, bam, bam.
Here we are. My best state.
All right, question number 3. Mitch, name that. Which is the fake? A. In 2012, a woman missing on vacation in Iceland was found when it was discovered that she was in the search party looking for herself. B.
I love that.
B. Wealth psychologist is an actual job title. These therapists help ultra-rich clients who are unable to mentally cope with their immense wealth. C. In 2014, a 13-year-old Girl Scout made the news for selling 117 boxes of cookies in 2 hours. She was selling them outside a marijuana dispensary.
Oh my God.
Or D. The last woolly mammoth community lived on an island in Canada's Arctic.
Ooh.
What was B again? Just like a keyword from that?
Wealth psychologist is an actual job title.
I feel like, okay. I'm gonna go with the woolly mammoth.
All right, Mitch says D. Next is Adam.
I've heard the Girl Guide cookie marijuana dispensary thing before. I'm going to call that out as a fake. I think it's just too good to be true. Also, like, the people leaving the dispensary are probably not high. I mean, maybe they're forward-thinking enough to say, I'm going to really want these cookies later. But if they have the foresight, they probably have, like, Cheetos and Doritos at home, and they're fine, you know? So I'm going to say that one's a fake.
Next is Greg.
Yeah, I think the Iceland is like quirky and seems very on brand for Iceland, so I think that that's real. And I know they have those volunteer search things. Well, psychologist, I think for sure is real. Like Silicon Valley exists; they all for sure have one. And I think I'm gonna go with Girl Guide cookies as well. I'm like 117 seems arbitrary. Like how almost in line with that Netherlands thing. Like how did they prove it? How did they track it with confidence? I'm gonna go with that. And you're right; you're not necessarily stoned when you're buying weed.
All right. Greg agrees about the Girl Guide.
That's just my logic.
Next is Darren.
Just a refresh, Pat, on the last one. Woolly mammoth where in Canada?
Lived on an island in Canada's Arctic.
Yeah.
Is that
I think I'm going to lose this whole game anyway, so I'll just pick that one.
All right. Darren goes with the woolly mammoth. Next is Cristina.
Pat, can you give me a keyword in A again?
Woman missing on vacation was found in the search party for herself.
I know that one to be true. So, as ridiculous as it sounds, I think I'm going to go. I feel like woolly mammoth's a trick question. I'm going to go with that one.
Cristina agrees with woolly mammoth. Wealth psychologists, also called wealth counselors, really exists. A woman was found when it was discovered that she was part of her own search party.
This is why people go traveling to find themselves, right?
The mix-up apparently occurred when the woman broke off from her tourist group and changed clothing. A Girl Scout did have to call for backup cookies after she sold out her stock in 45 minutes in front of a dispensary. She ended up selling 117 boxes of cookies in 2 hours. The last woolly mammoth community did live on an Arctic island, but it was in Russia, not Canada.
All right.
That was actually what I thought. I'm like, isn't it somewhere near Siberia?
Virtual high five.
And I thought about that marijuana one. I was like, it's too, like,
specific.
You might not, that could be true. We might not have heard a news story, but, like, there's lots of little Girl Guides selling cookies. So, like, you know what I mean?
I bought 2 boxes last week.
What a smart girl. Wow, Mitch, good job. You're 3 for 3. Hey.
All right, question number 4. Adam, spot the fake. Is it A, the state of Ohio gives out different colored license plates for people convicted of a DUI? Oh. B, a group of pandas is called an embarrassment.
No wonder they're not procreating. We're shaming them.
C, Arctic penguins are the same as Antarctic penguins, except the Arctic ones are white with black bits and the Antarctic ones are black with white bits. Or D, Mark Spitz, 9-time Olympic swimming champion, once jokingly told a Russian journalist that his mustache increased his swimming speed by deflecting water away from his mouth. The next year, all male Russian swimmers had a mustache.
I think the penguin one is fake because I don't think they're both called penguins, which leads to some French-English confusion because penguin is not the French word for penguin.
All right, Adam says penguins. Next is Greg.
Yeah, I was going to say the penguins too. It seems also just like too on the nose for like the distance. It just doesn't make sense to me. The Russian thing does. That seems real. And yeah, DUI, embarrassment. I feel like both of those are true too. So yeah.
All right.
Penguins.
You agree with Adam. Next is Darren.
I'll pick penguins also.
Darren also says penguins. And next is Cristina.
I'm going to go rogue. I'm going to go with B.
Cristina says a group of pandas is not called an embarrassment. And lastly, Mitch.
Okay, like, I so want to say the penguin thing, but it just feels, like, so obvious, like, that it should be a trick question in some weird way. If you had all said penguin, though, maybe I would have done it as a strategy to just lose with you. But I'm going to go with A, the DUI.
Ooh.
All right, Mitch goes with A. The state of Ohio does give out different colored license plates for people convicted of DUI. Mark Spitz did make up a story about his mustache, resulting in the Russian male swimming team all growing one. A group of pandas is called an embarrassment. Arctic penguins is a trick question from a CBC quiz. There are no penguins in the Arctic. They live much further south.
That would have been really cool if we had said that.
If only we had a science show.
It's like when you get the right answer, but you give an explanation that's not at all right. You don't really get it right, you know?
These things. I just was convinced there was some weird trick word in there that was like, you were going to zing us all with the penguin thing.
Embarrassment? That's amazing. Why?
Yeah, that's so strange.
I know. It's so cute.
All right, it's anyone's game because going into the last question, I have Darren with 2, Cristina with 2, Mitch leading with 3, Adam with 1, and Greg with 1.
So you say it's anyone's game, you mean 3 of the 5.
It's not my game.
It's not our game.
Question number 5. Greg, you're up. Spot the fake. Is it A? In 2014, a UPS worker in Arizona stole a diamond worth $160,000 from a cargo plane, which he traded for $20 worth of weed.
Oh my God.
And Girl Guide cookies.
Yeah.
Or B, pumpernickel bread dates back to the Napoleonic era. Napoleon ordered that his horse, Nicole, be fed only the finest bread. It was known as bread for Nicole, in French, pain pour Nicole, which became pumpernickel. C, every time a child is born or adopted in Wales, the Welsh government plants a tree in Uganda. Or D, a marker on Interstate 70 in Colorado, 420 miles, was stolen so many times that it has been replaced with one that reads mile 419.99.
I think A is the fake. The other ones have just truth spilling right out of them.
All right, Greg says the UPS worker.
Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if you didn't know its value, it just doesn't seem right.
All right.
Okay.
Next is Darren.
So I'll pick pumpernickel.
All right, Darren says B, pumpernickel. Next is Cristina.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that one too because I remember reading that barbecue is bal, beard, au cul. and I thought that was true and I kept perpetuating that and then I really dug in and I realized it's actually not really corroborated. So I'm kind of feeling like maybe I'm going to go with the pain pour Nicole.
All right, Cristina agrees with B. Next is Mitch.
I was leaning towards that too. Between either of those two, they're like the marijuana thing seems so absurd that you would have something worth so much, and something about the specificity about Nicole, the horse being fed bread, just seemed too much for me. I'm gonna go with pumpernickel.
All right, Mitch agrees with B, and lastly, Adam.
Do horses even eat bread?
Like
Like they eat hay, and I wasn't going to go with that, but all of a sudden that came to mind. I feel like, no, I don't think they're like made to digest it. They eat like pure vegetables and if grains may be part of it, but you cook it. I don't know. I'm going to go with the pain pour Nicole. I think that one's fake.
All right, we have 4 Bs. Every time a child is born or adopted in Wales, a tree is planted in Uganda as part of the Welsh plant program. A marker on Interstate 70 does read mile 419.99 because the 420 marker kept getting stolen. A UPS worker did trade a $160,000 diamond for $20 of weed.
Oh, wow. That's on him.
Pumpernickel bread is originally from Germany. The origin of the word is pretty entertaining, actually. It's a German word that comes from pumpern, which means to break wind, and nickel, a take on the name Nicholas, which is associated with goblins or devilish characters. The word comes from the bread's reputed indigestibility, so the name can be translated to the devil's fart.
Wow. Okay.
I don't disagree. I hate pumpernickel.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Was the other one something you totally made up, or where did you get the whole pain pour Nicole story?
Was also on the Reddit thread of Make Up Your Best Fake Fact.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations. Mitch is your winner.
Yes, Mitch. Yeah.
Thank you. I studied really hard for this test.
He's bowing.
Thanks, Pat. And thanks for joining us once again, Mitch and Greg, as well as our listeners. We learned that trees in urban areas do affect temperature, so try to get some more canopy in there to cool things down a bit. Yeah. And that the way agriculture influenced the way in which our overbite functioned or not allowed us to pronounce F and V a bit more. And finally, Pat gave us a very fair game where only the best could win. Before we wrap up, Mitch and Greg, where can people find you?
All over the internet.
Whoa.
At AsapSCIENCE on basically any platform. And then I'm at Mitchell Moffit, and Greg is
at Whale Watch Me PLZ.
Is there a particular episode or topic you were really happy that you covered or found really interesting?
What's one that's, well, recently we did one of The Biggest Lie about climate change. That's sort of something that can get like the audience into some interesting information that we've all been lied to and help, create some emphasis around how we can move forward with the issues of climate change. So that's one that actually has sort of like oomph behind it. But a lot of the videos are all very fun. Very, very fun.
And people should definitely check out the Side Note podcast. The last one that you guys did on vaccines was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Until next time, think better, tack better.
Peace out, cuboids.
Stay classy, not smart-assy.
Bye.
See ya.
We'll talk to you next week, everyone.
Wow, those are all really good.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Thanks.
All right, here we go with everyone's favorite. Here, right off the top.
F and V's are difficult.
Yeah. Mark Spitz did make up a story about his mustache.